All right, let's dive in. Today we're going to deconstruct a business strategy that sounds, well, completely backwards, but it's happening all the time: overbooking. We'll be using the hotel industry as our case study to really dig into the high-stakes economic gamble that managers are making every single day. Let's get started.
Okay, just let that sink in for a second. Hotels are selling more rooms than they physically possess. I mean, on the surface, that sounds wrong, right? It breaks the most fundamental rule of business. You sell what you've got. But here's the thing. In the hotel world, and frankly in a lot of other industries, this isn't a mistake. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It is the system. And that's the big economic puzzle we're going to pull apart today from both a manager's and an economist's point of view.
So we need to be crystal clear on this point. Overbooking is not an accident. It's not some glitch in the reservations software. Nope. It is a calculated, deliberate economic strategy. You should think of it as a tool, one that's specifically designed to solve a fundamental, persistent, and very costly business problem. To really get why the strategy exists, we first have to understand the problem it's trying to fix.
And here we have it, the absolute core of the problem. It's not a failure of inventory management. It's a simple consequence of human behavior. You see, the real issue is people. We're just unreliable. Cancellations are one thing, but the real killer for a hotel is the no-show. That's a guest who has a confirmed reservation, but they neither show up nor do they bother to cancel. From a manager's perspective, this is just pure cash disappearing into thin air. They've held on to that room, probably turned away other paying customers, only for it to make $0. It's this customer unpredictability that the entire strategy of overbooking is designed to manage.
Now let's put on our economist hats for a minute. Why is an empty room such a catastrophe for a hotel? Well, it's because a hotel room is the classic textbook example of what we call a perishable asset or perishable inventory. Think about it. An unsold airline seat after the plane takes off, an empty seat at a concert that just ended, or an unbooked hotel room for last night. They all have one thing in common. At the stroke of midnight, their value for that day drops to precisely zero. You can't sell yesterday's room. That potential revenue is just gone forever. And this concept is absolutely crucial to understanding the intense pressure managers feel to fill every single room every single night.
This slide right here just perfectly lays out the decision a manager has to make. Let's look at scenario A, the safe option. You have 100 rooms, so you book 100 rooms. But based on historical data, you know about 5 of those guests will be no-shows. The result? 5 empty rooms. In economic terms, this isn't just lost revenue. It's what we call opportunity cost. You lost the opportunity to sell those rooms to 5 other people. Now look over at scenario B. Here, the manager anticipates those 5 no-shows and decides to overbook by 5 rooms. When those 5 guests inevitably don't show up, boom, you have a 100% full hotel. This is what the industry calls perfect yield. They've literally turned a liability, unreliable customers, into maximum profit. You can see the powerful financial incentive right there.
But of course, there's no such thing as a risk-free strategy. This is a gamble, and sometimes the house loses. So what happens when the manager's prediction is wrong? What happens when all 105 of those guests actually show up at the front desk? Well, that leads us to the downside of this gamble, a situation with its own industry jargon, walking the guest.
So walking a guest is the operational fallout from a failed overbooking gamble. It means a manager has to look a guest who has a confirmed reservation, which is essentially a contract, right in the eye and tell them the hotel is breaking that contract. Standard practice pretty much everywhere says the hotel has to fix this. They have to arrange and pay for a room at a comparable, or even better, hotel nearby, and they have to pay for the transportation to get there. It's financially costly, it's incredibly damaging to their reputation, and honestly, it's an operational nightmare.
Let's analyze these 2 costs, because they are not created equal. The financial cost, that's immediate. It's tangible. The manager sees that direct hit on their profit and loss statement for the night. But the reputation cost, oh, that's the one that keeps smart managers up at night. In the age of TripAdvisor, Yelp, and Google reviews, a single, angry, detailed story from a walked guest can live online forever. It can scare away hundreds of future bookings. So this intangible cost to the brand's reputation can, over time, far, far exceed the one-time cost of another hotel room. And this is the fundamental tension: a short-term financial gain versus a long-term reputational risk.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand that this isn't a manager just rolling the dice and hoping for the best. This decision-making process has been formalized into a quantitative discipline, a whole field of study known as yield management. This definition is key. Yield management is the science of squeezing every last drop of revenue out of a fixed, perishable resource, like our hotel rooms. It's a statistical game. Managers use sophisticated models that factor in everything: historical data, booking patterns, the season, local events, to predict consumer behavior. Specifically, they're trying to nail down the probability of no-shows for any given night. So you see, overbooking isn't the whole strategy. It's just one powerful tool within the much bigger discipline of yield management.
And this chart just brilliantly illustrates the core calculation. Let's look at the numbers. The cost of an empty room, that opportunity cost, is 1 million rupiah, but the cost of walking a guest is 1.5 million. So the manager is weighing these two potential negative outcomes. The cost of being wrong and overbooking is 50% higher than the cost of being cautious and having an empty room. Because of this, a rational manager will only accept the risk of overbooking if their models predict that the probability of a no-show is high enough to make that gamble have a positive expected value. It's a classic cost-benefit analysis under conditions of uncertainty.
So the crucial point here is that this isn't about gut instinct. Managers are using sophisticated software and tons of historical data. They know, for instance, that a guest who booked a cheap, non-refundable rate 6 months ago is way more likely to be a no-show than a business traveler who booked a full-price, flexible rate yesterday for a big conference. Every single booking has a different no-show probability, and this data is what transforms overbooking from a wild guess into a calculated risk.
This real-world example from Tanjung Lesung is a perfect case study of how the local context completely changes the math. So, it's a festival, and demand is through the roof. The incentive to overbook is huge. However, the risk side of the equation gets magnified. With very few other hotels nearby, the cost of walking a guest is suddenly not just 1.5 million rupiah. It's an unquantifiable reputational disaster. There's nowhere to send the guest. In this scenario, a rational manager's willingness to risk overbooking would drop dramatically, even with all that high demand.
Ultimately, what we've been analyzing is a fundamental strategic tension. It's a constant, high-stakes game of optimization. You're weighing the certain cost of an empty room against the probabilistic and potentially much larger cost of a customer service failure. This dynamic pits the goal of maximizing profit directly against the promise of customer satisfaction.
So I'll leave you with this question. As you get ready to become managers and business leaders, where do you stand on this? When you're the one faced with the data, the probabilities, and the pressure to maximize yield, how much risk are you willing to take with your customers' trust? Is this a necessary tool for survival in a tough industry, or is it a practice that fundamentally breaks the promise you made to a guest? There is no easy answer.